Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Trump uses the shutdown to quietly reshape the government. Israel intercepts a boat bringing aid to Gaza. Activist says that it's illegal. Israel calls it security. Joe Rogan throws his weight behind Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth anti-woke military vision. A conservative influencer charges $48,000 for a video phone call sparking outrage and scandal. I wish I would pay somebody $48,000 for a video phone call. Now, while the federal government is in a shutdown limbo, Trump isn't idle. His administration is quietly plotting a wholesale reboot of the federal agencies, threatening mass firings, canceling projects, and issuing directives that aim to purge programs perceived as waste. Undercover a lot of the chaos, he's pushing the idea that shutdown doesn't mean paralysis, it means power, that if Congress won't act, he will. But the cost, no one really actually knows. Uncertainty for millions of workers and irreversible damage to agencies you didn't even know the matter. Don't let these two political parties play you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let them play the American people. Conservative against liberal, Democrat against Republican. It's the government. And believe me, they're two sides of the same coin. And in the middle, there's no middle, because they don't really look for the American people and the best interest of us. Because you would say, if you're a conservative, that it's the liberal Democrats that are pushing a woke agenda of infusing the federal budget of billions of dollars to fund health care for illegal immigrants. And then the Democrats will state, well, the funding is not for illegal immigrants, it's for millions of Americans who was left without Medicaid. So again, it just depends on what side you believe, what side you adhere to, what side that you sign up for each and every voting block, whether it be 2 years or 4 years. So again, don't let these politicians, no matter what side you fall on, fool you, because they've been doing that for quite some time. And I'm here to tell you that picking a side really doesn't pan out for anyone, especially the American people. Now, in the Mediterranean tonight, Israel Navy has intercepted nearly all vessels from the Global Summit boat amid the breaching Gaza block activists. Now, there are some activists that are trying to reach Gaza to provide aid for the millions of Palestinians that have been left without it. One of them is including Greta Thunberg. They were aboard these ships carrying humanitarian aid, no weapons, and Israel claims that the move was necessary for security. And a lot of the critics says it's blatant violation of international law and another assault on Gaza lifeline. The world is watching Israel, and we understand, and we've been understanding what you've been doing and what you currently do. But my question is, will anyone intervene? And when I mean by anyone, I'm referring to the United Nations, because quite frankly, they could have had the United Nations to protect a lot of these humanitarian efforts, a lot of these humanitarian boats that is trying to reach Gaza and give aid to the millions and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that are in dire need of fresh water, food, shelter, tents, generators, medical aid, every single thing that they need. I wonder, when the IDF intercepted, when the IDF Navy intercepted this humanitarian aid boat, are because of security reasons, I wonder if they're going to now take the humanitarian aid that was along these ships on these boats and give them to the Gazan people, the Palestinian people that are now fleeing Gaza. That is the question. What is going to happen to all the resources that these humanitarians was trying to render aid to the Gazans? So I'll keep you guys updated with that as well. Now, Pete Hegseth came out and basically said no more fat generals, no more political correctness, and we're against war, and we are war on the woke garbage agenda. Joe Rogan is stepping into the fray, openly backing Defense Secretary Hegseth, his crusade against woke garbage and fat generals. And this was at a military address. Hegseth scoffed an idea that politics and signaled that combat roles will demand highest male standards. And To a certain degree, I actually agree with this. There should be no fat generals. You should be the epitome of the example of what a soldier should look like. Now, granted, a lot of these generals are in their late 50s or 60s. Do I expect them to be all muscled up and cut and ripped? But no, they should have a military physique, so to speak, flat stomachs, you know. But when I look at a lot of these generals, especially at the Pentagon, when I was there and I was looking throughout the halls, these guys are busting loose. Okay, they coming in there like Fat Albert. Hey, they have to literally get their uniforms altered to add more material so it can be stretched because they're so darn large, and that needed to stop. Now, this whole war on woke, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break down what woke is, and well, we're going to break down what woke used to be, and now how conservative ideology has changed the terminology to woke and put that on the mainstream for people to make this a pejorative term. We're just gonna nip that in the bud. We're gonna debunk that to a certain degree and understand how woke came about. But nonetheless, Hegseth scoffed the idea that politics and signaled that these combat roles will demand the highest male standards. We're talking about war, ladies and gentlemen, and I would tend to agree and be in line with Pete Hegseth when it comes to this. Now, Rogan applauded that vision, calling out that what he sees as ideological baggage weakening the armed forces. But the backlash is fierce, especially from women veterans and defense analysts who warn mixing politics and military identity is exactly how you break institutional trust. And I also agree with that. That's why in a lot of these breakdowns, ladies and gentlemen, I have very conflicting views and contradicting views because two things can be true at the same time, and haphazardly, some of the truth can hold false narrative within. So it's not as simple on the surface because in some regards, it could be complex. I 100% agree because for quite some time, generals didn't have to take PT tests. They were literally exempt. They had their own set of rules, their own set of standards when it comes to uniform, PT tests, shooting twice a year, taking a PT test twice a year. So I do agree. And when the world looks at America and some of our troops, we do have obese troops and we give them time after time to lose the weight and get in shape, lose the weight and get in shape. You go on these fat profiles and, oh, well, you know, my knee is hurt. Well, why your knee is hurt? Well, you are 50 pounds, 100 pounds over the weight standards. So again, there's height and weight standards, and then there's taping standards. Now, there will be troops, no matter what armed forces you're a part of, that what we call bus and tape, meaning that the Army states because you're 5'10", that, you know, you're 5'10", your waist should be 36 inches, but some people's inches may be 30, so you bust tape. But your height and weight still falls within the range of acceptable. And a lot of these people like myself, I used to live really heavy. I used to work out twice a day. So take, for instance, my weight was, let's say 210, but they want me at 195 at 5'11", 6 feet. But when you look at my fat to body ratio, I'm only 10%. I'm only 10% fat because they do these, you know, they do the tape and weight. They don't do the pinch standard, so to speak. But they will tape, but I had a 37-inch waist. Okay, he can pass because they know that not everybody's going to fit within the guidelines of height and weight, and that is why they tape you. So again, when you step on the scale, let's take, for instance, again, 5'11", 6 feet, you should be roughly 200 pounds or less. Okay, this is very arbitrary numbers. I don't remember the chart verbatim, but nonetheless, when you don't fall within those measurements, you are over the height and weight standards for the military. So the secondary standard is taping you. Okay, if you're over the weight, let's see if you bust tape. So they put the tape measure around, you know, the fatty part of your stomach to see if you indeed are overweight and over fat for your weight class and your height. So I might have been over the weight standard for my height, but I was always below the tape measure because I had a very small waist because I was working out and I was gaining muscle mass. So in those regards, I totally understand that nobody in the armed forces should be fat unless it's a female who has gotten pregnant and they give her what, I believe it's about 90 3 to 4 months to, get back down to her weight within standards. So again, that is acceptable as well. But he does have a point. I will have to agree with Pete Hegseth when it comes to military standards and what a soldier, Marine, Air Force, and naval person should look like. Because when I look at a lot of the armies and militaries around the world, they look almost identical, height, weight. None of them have bulging stomachs. None of them are out of shape and out of whack and out of face. They look pristine. When we do these partnerships, when I was part of certain operations like the 31st Mule in the Marine Corps or Corporate Goal and all these different things, when you came in contact with these other soldiers, they damn near look the same, ladies and gentlemen. So our fighting force have to be in better shape than any other nation in the world. We have all these elite fighting groups. We have the Navy SEALs. We have Marine Force Recon. We have Special Forces and Rangers. Okay, we have all these different security. We have all these specialized groups. They are in great shape, but the rest of the force, when we look around, we look at the standards. Like, how are you still in the Army? How are you still in the Marine Corps? What naval ship were you deployed on, Lord? So again, our military force have to be in shape because it's a fighting force. So again, I cannot agree with them. But let's break down woke very quickly, because Joe Rogan has chimed in and stating that, he's on board with Pete Hegseth against this so-called war on woke, just as Ron DeSantis stop the woke agenda. Let's kind of comb through very briefly here what woke is and how woke started. Now, I'm going to do a bit of reading and I'll try my best. Now, the term woke has undergone a significant transformation, which is meaning shifting dramatically depending on the context and the speaker. It originated in Black American vernacular English to mean being aware of racial and social injustices, but in recent years been widely adopted by political conservatives as a pejorative term. Now, woke first emerged in Black communities in the 20th century as a call for awareness of racial injustice. In 1938, blues magician Lead Belly used the phrase "stay woke" in his song. Scott Barrow Boys wanting Black people to remain vigilant against racial violence. That this was all about systematic racism and injustice, about stay woke, being woke. Woke became widely associated with Black Lives Matter movement, not the organization. We all know the organization was a fraudulent scam cycle for LGBTQ and transgender, and the ladies who co-opted that movement to make an organization in order to make millions of dollars. The movement and the organization are two different things, ladies and gentlemen. Do not conflate the two. Do not combine the two. It also states that woke became widely associated with Black Lives Matter movement, and this was based upon racial discrimination. It goes on to state adopted by a broader range of social injustice activists and enter mainstream culture. And again, that is the lead into LGBTQ and all these sort of quote unquote liberal things that they're pushing into schools. But again, you know what's woke as well? Woke is eradicating and erasing Black history from textbooks and renaming and renaming terms to say that enslaved Black people were immigrants and or laborers. No, they were enslaved to work free in these United States of America, which have made the most richest, powerful country on earth, and still counting. And Black American political consciousness was obscured, meaning that it got confused, it got complicated of what the term woke is. If you ask most people who are in the conservative base, not politicians, because they know how to deflect, they know how to just talk out the side of their neck and give you all these different answers. But if you ask somebody who's just a regular old conservative and you say, hey, what does woke mean? Woke is LGBT. They'll give you some like off-brandish term. Well, where did woke start? How did woke come about? What was the inception of woke? They don't know these terms, okay? It goes on to state that this is used as a broad, derisive label for what they perceive as excessive political correctness or liberal social justice causes. Then they go off and say that the term is often deployed against diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, critical race theory, and LGBTQ plus issues. Let me tell you why I never really covered critical race theory, because that's a farce. Why I kind of covered DEI to a point where the Department of Labor and Statistics stated that the most benefactors of DEI has been white women, white men, Hispanics, Asians, and blacks, in that order. So you can have your DEI, you can have your affirmative action, you can wrap it all up and keep supporting the people and play as though that this hasn't supported more white people than it has any other group in America. And do not forget, black people continue to stay at the bottom because it's not about the discrimination. It's about these are ways that the system has always plagued black people to come from the bottom up. And then you will have people that look like me and tell you, oh, there's no racism, there's no struggle, there's no oppression. Because I want you to look at their bank accounts. I want you to look at them and how they got to where they were and ask them, did they come up from the bottom like you? Now, Stop Woke Act of 2022, that is a brainchild of Ron DeSantis, no less. But here it is, ladies and gentlemen, for conservatives and critics, it is a pejorative term used to dismiss liberal viewpoints and what they see as radical social agenda. And that is such a complicated mixed bag because anything that the Democrats, anything that the liberals, anything that they deem that is not conservative or Republican is woke agenda. And we know that has to be absolutely 1000% false. Confusing has it lost original significance due to its polarizing usage, because anything that the Republicans do not agree upon, anything outside of the Democrats or liberal miles, whether it be on the streets or in Congress, that's woke. Woke agenda. Stop woke. Anti-woke. The war on woke. All these things. Everything is not woke. As I told you and gave you the history of the premise and how it came into inception, they have totally bastardized the term woke. And it does not mean what they say it is, but again, because they politicize it, they publicize it, and now they're blowing it up more than any other time in the world, you guys can have the term woke. I don't care anymore. Yeah, stop all the woke stuff. Stop all the LGBTQ in schools. Stop all the critical race theory. Stop all the DEI too. Just stop it all. This all is so woke. That's where I'm at when it comes to that, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Now, last but far from least, a conservative influence is under fire after charging fans $48,000 just for a video phone call. And believe me, that's not advice. That's a paywall of patriotism turned scandal. Now, though the name is not yet viral, this shakeup reveals cracks in the ideology economy. When devotion becomes a price tag, what's left for the authenticity of this person? Because online followers are enraged about this amount. Legal threats are brewing, and this may be a turning point in how political influence monetize loyalty. Ladies and gentlemen, the culprit here is no other than Patrick Bet Davis, okay? He is the co-founder and founder of the PBD podcast and Valuetainment. He's worth $350 million. Does he need this $48,000 for video phone call? Does he need $11,000, as you guys see here, for $100? Does he need $100 per message? No, he doesn't need it. He wants it. And if you really want to have his advice, if you want to link up with him, if you want his wisdom, you want his business acumen, you want to tap into his pedigree when it comes to business, then people are going to pay that $48,000. And that's what he's betting on. If you want to text him, $100 per message. So believe me when I tell you this, my message, if I were to ever think about, which I wouldn't, need his advice or his insight about something, my question would be the longest question in human history. It will probably be a 10-page text because I need that answer back. It won't be short. How you doing today? That's $100. Well, I just wanted to ask you a question. That's $100. How do you go about starting a business? That's another question. Okay, once I start my LLC, what's my next step? That's $100. About time you finish, ladies and gentlemen, he'll get us $48,000. Okay? And it goes on to state here, naysayers were quick to mock the entrepreneur with one writing, who the F is paying that? Another commented, the goal of this is to give the perception that he's super important. I would be shocked if he actually gets called. They're going to be somebody. They're going to be somebody. Imagine paying a man $48,000 whose only track record of success is hot takes on the internet about the latest news in politics and culture, wrote a third. After the post went viral on X, former Twitter, an unfazed Bat Davis hit back at his critics with a simple response. It's actually $48,000 for an hour of FaceTime and $100 for an audio text. Access is expensive, he wrote. Ladies and gentlemen, and these are the people that you hold up on a pedestal, and they're making sure that they're going to quake and shake and scam you at every bit. You are worth $350 million. Now, if you would have told people, hey, my time is valuable, but $48,000, you know, I could understand someone who's worth $350 million. If you would charge people, let's say, you know, $500 for an hour of FaceTime or even $1,000. I could totally understand that. You've been a high power figure like yourself. But $48,000, maybe because I'm broke, maybe because I'm rich, because for some reason that seems like a whole bit of money to